Oh God, my ears are too big. Listen, please excuse the beard. I've been working feverishly for the past, I don't know, 20 years. Literally 20 years to get to this point. The point where an idea comes together, it feels right, the math works out, it fits a problem like a key that no one else was able to solve or is able to solve. I am beyond excited to announce this to you all. My latest project. After I thought my life was over when my previous indoor farming company, Cellular Farms Inc., was basically put out to pasture. It was uh, it was ended. Okay, against my wishes, it was ended, and with that, a whole chapter of my life was gone. I spent 5 years on the business trying to get it off the ground, and we discovered incredible things. And then in the end, it just wasn't enough. The thing that could have solved all my problems was a social media following. Because by the time I got my product ready, it was too late. And so here I am now calling my shot before I even take a swing. I haven't even formed the new business. It's a project right now. I'm gathering resources, people, advisors, information, knowledge, wisdom, and everything. And then, funding or founding the paperwork is easy. You can go online and click a couple buttons and start a LLC or a Delaware C Corp and get all your. That's not the hard part. The hard part is knowing what you're doing, who you're doing it with, and how are you going to do it. That's like everything. And so this new business, Skyrise Farms, there's a website, skyrisefarms.com. You can go see it. In essence, the public-facing marketing message is that we will be building vertical farming districts. I cannot express to you how excited I am that the new economics, I'm calling it, of vertical farming help us to retrofit, afford the retrofitting of basically any old office building into a mixed use vertical farm. This is critical. So we're going to go in and we're going to immediately start by growing, gutting one floor and in a raw space growing our supplements. That is the underwriter of the project. We can sell those supplements direct to consumer. We don't need any distribution or retail partners. We can control our own destiny. And because we're vertically integrated, not only like literally, but operationally, we capture that margin and it pays for everything else. So then we can go level by level and we can start using the same exact platform in its less uh, difficult operational configurations to grow a handful of other agricultural outputs. So probably, at least on paper, what I would do next is like greens, right? That's the next most profitable product. Most companies started, vertical farming companies, by growing greens and focusing on them first. They were copying me and the early alum from the vertical farming world out of Chicago in the Midwest. And one of the things I pioneered was growing packaged baby leaf salad mixes out of vertical farms. And the reason that was so significant back then, in the 2010s, we didn't know how to do vertical farming. We didn't know how to license these things. We didn't know how to grow them. We didn't know how to sell them. None of that was known. Uh, that market is like much bigger than the niche crops that folks were growing indoors, like basils, herbs, microgreens, that kind of stuff, even peas and shoots and sprouts and stuff like that. And uh, if you want a larger vertical farm, you need to have a crop that has a larger market it can sell into. And so packaged salads global, is a national market that everyone sells, no matter what grocery store you're in. The interesting thing is, and this is where people got stuck. $8 billion was invested into the vertical farming industry over the last decade or so, and they're all failing. Everyone's going bankrupt. No one can make it work for two reasons mainly. One reason is, and they come back to this, I guess, ultimate reason. the systems were poorly designed for the process by which they wanted to do this. So you can't have, can I make my background highlight? Okay. Um, Everyone got super excited about vertical farming, and whatever system, two people usually came together. There was a guy, it was usually a guy, a vertical farming nerd that had some equipment, a design, or whatever, and then a business person came and saw it, saw the future, ran to the capital markets, said, "Listen, we got something here. Look at the macroeconomic trends. Da 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 da. We can grow. We can cut food miles down, decrease water usage. All these beautiful things that vertical farming did." But there was a lot of stuff that like couldn't be scaled, or the systems were never designed for mass production. Those early systems, those prototypes, those little hobby systems, whatever they were meant designed in like small spaces for small output. And what everyone did was get funding and took their small system and just made it bigger, stacked them on top of each other, added more next to them. Everyone did this. Everyone did this. And nobody succeeded because they also scaled their inefficiencies. A famous story is of Plenty, Ag. And I pick on them because they raised the most money. Almost $1 billion cash they poured into this business. And I talked to the inventor of the system early on. I gave him ideas. I wanted to work for him as like an R&D scientist to make his systems better. But everyone invested based on the moat that their IP, intellectual property, was different and unique, and so they got stuck in, like everyone else did, in a rut where they gotta use the system that they funded. Oh, let's increase this, let's decrease that, we can make it more efficient. Economies of scale. But it didn't work out, and it doesn't work. They took a small system that is vertical in terms of like imagine a post out of which plants grow, and the top of which water gets added and the bottom of which water leaves. And these things were strung and stacked, kind of hanging from the ceiling across small greenhouses. And they were not meant for artificial lighting. As the sun passed over, enough incidental light reached all the plants that they achieved their daily light interval, the DLI, the number of photons a plant needs in a given stage of its maturation cycle to reach the next stage, to be healthy, to grow healthily. It worked in a hobby greenhouse setting. Very elegant solution. And maybe it could work in a commercial greenhouse setting. But these guys got sold the view, the dream of indoor vertical farming, which is what everyone thinks, feels should be the future. And that caused all their problems. Because then they took the system meant for small greenhouses and they blew it up in large warehouses. You might be thinking, why does that matter? Well, it matters because a vertical farm system designed for a greenhouse needs a different configuration, needs that same configuration of light and air and space and labor and all these different things. And a warehouse cannot provide that. And so they add artificial lighting, but then that was locked. You could only add them in certain places. And then the towers got taller. It went from 10 to, 10 or 8, about 10 feet to 20 feet, right? Now, how are you going to harvest them? Well, you need to put them down on, you have to design a custom workflow with robots to load them and unload them. And these robots, use machine vision before AI. And so their tolerances for these different plants, widths, and shapes and so now you need, automation engineers, you need this. And it just never worked out. It was never efficient. I showed him the math that there was a better way to do it using pallets. He did not, using his system on a pallet to increase the throughput of the farm. It was just too much. Back then, they couldn't jump rails and go on down a different track. And so let alone now, it's like it's over. They can't. And someone My financial advisor for this project, he's like, they're going bankrupt. He's helped liquidate some of these vertical farms in the past, these businesses, and brought to you by Honda, jet skis and pickup trucks. They no, but seriously, this whole project is funded by supplement sales. So if you go over to pointbotanicals.com, pointbotanicals.com, buy our sulforaphane. You need it, everyone needs it. It helps you clear the chemicals that this world is with every second of every day, unfortunately. I'm in a soundproof call booth. This non-woven plastic fiber, I'm getting BPA leached into my system. The paint on this vinyl table is leaching God knows what. It's not good, folks. Sulforaphane is the answer to our chemical catastrophe. Pointbotanicals.com. Now, the other problem is when you take a vertical farming system like that and you scale it up, you are locked into the mechanical configuration of the system, which is designed around a specific type of crop. It needs to have this specific type of spacing and height clearance and support a certain volume of roots, and therefore, and it's, wherever the roots are and the water delivery, the fertigation, so it's irrigating water plus the fertilizer mixed in. You are limited by how to do all that based on the shape of your plant holding vessel, right? In this case, it was like tall towers. To this day, it was obvious now that they should have pivoted to greenhouses, but it wasn't as sexy, it wasn't as profitable, and so on and so forth. His system with artificial lighting does not mix. I took the complete opposite approach to everybody else. Welcome to my life. Also, why I'm bald. Okay? I'm an iconoclast, I'm a contrarian. I look at what the mass is doing and I start with the opposite as a thought exercise. And a lot of times it leads me into wonderful terrain. It also makes me completely unemployable unless for people who are really smart and want their marketing to work flawlessly, which was my day job. But no more. I'm a vertical farmer now. I'm failing upwards. I had to write a book about all these stories, man. That was the dawn of vertical farming. I'm the reason vertical farming scaled. My lab is the reason vertical farming scaled nationally. And I got no credit, no money, nothing. I just got destroyed for it. God, those early days were rough. And so you can't buy an old vertical farm because the system needs to be completely gutted and replaced. It's the architecture, the infrastructure that's the problem. You can't update it. You can't renovate. It is the bottleneck. It causes the building to be too expensive to build. It causes the operations to be too slow and inefficient. It causes you to be locked into certain types of crops. My approach was the opposite. I said, okay, I've been thinking about this full time since 2010. How do we grow a ton of material indoors? Soon, at the time I was most worried about climate change, I'm like, the planet's going to need a ton of vertical farms built in a very short period of time, sometime in the near future. Let's, worry about when later. Let's figure out how now. And I look at the global supply chain and I'm like, how do people move so much material all over the planet every single second of every single day, nonstop? Well, they use pallets and forklifts and pallet racks in warehouses. These things are available in every country on the planet. They can interchange easily, right? Different pallets can fit on different racking, and different forklifts can pick up different pallets, and warehouses can fit different configurations of pallet racking, etc. Types of pallet racking. So I'm like, okay, can I figure out how to grow in a vertical farm using pallets so that I can use a forklift, so that I can use pallet racking, so that I can go into any space. I don't need a fancy space. And yeah, the answer was yes. I grew salads quite easily for Whole Foods. I sold that company, erroneously or not, to Wilder Fields, who raised $40 million off the back of my platform and then just totally ruined it. This guy, I put my heart and soul. That was my third vertical farming venture. 6 years in, full time. I made less than 50 grand over those 5 or 6 years. Okay, I finally got the wholesale food establishment license, which I helped write the rules and regs for Chicago, which then became nationally adopted. Nobody knew how to license a vertical farm back then. So food safety concerns, OSHA concerns. Oh my God, it was endless. Building code concerns, and instead of using the prototype to further develop and refine the palette concept, which I explained to him is very important, he's like, no, no, that's too boring. We don't want some blue collar worker going up and grabbing a pallet full of salads and bringing it down and taking it to a processing station. Boo, no, we need AI, machine vision, automation. And so he developed this complex system where a robot would go up to the pallet and grab the thing on racking, like on conveyors, and move it down automatically. And I'm like, dude, you know how much that's gonna cost? Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? Guess what? He didn't even get to where he needed to go because the complexity involved in each component, manufacturing each component of a vertical farm, of a manufacturing facility, it exponentially increases the complexity and cost and the risk of the project. If you're just making custom pallets, that's hard enough, okay? If you now need to make custom racking, that adds another issue, a decision tree of issues. And then you need a custom conveyor system to move these things. He could not get the building built out and fast enough, and he basically ran out of money and had to hire a different CEO to come in and bail him out. And I'm like, this is why I did it this way, to avoid that. Let's use regular pallet racking. Let's use a regular forklift. All the innovation should be squeezed into the pallet. And you don't need any innovation to grow salads, basically. You can use and he stole this from me? Everyone stole everything from me. Man, I was the lamb in that picture on Twitter of all the wolves biting it. That was literally my innocent, pure soul providing packaged salad, vertical farming, you know, knowledge and secrets, trade secrets to the early stage, to the scam artists who have all gone out of business by now. I'm the only one who's still doing this. I refuse to let these charlatans win. I'm a charlatanian. Charlatan? Down with the charlatans, up with the charlatans. And yeah, literally, if anyone wants to start growing salads on their own, all you need is a 4x4 Botanicare low tide trade, glued or industrially velcroed to a low profile plastic pallet that matches the dimensions, about 4x4, on any type of pallet racking, doesn't matter, and beaver plastics styrofoam inserts, 2x4. Two of them perfectly fit into a pallet. All you have to do is push them in, and they squeeze and form a tight fit. You can use any kind of plug you want, and you have now a salad growing pallet. And you can stack them as high as you want, and you just let one drain into the one below it. That's it. Now, if you want to scale past 10,000 square feet, you need machine vision, you need advanced HVAC, you need a bunch of other tricks, right? Because when you're growing indoors, imagine you have 5,000 pallets of indoor farming in a block. Let's just say, let's make it simple, right? And they're in a giant rectangle. Forget about aisles and pallet trucks. Let's just say it's dynamic pallet racking, so the aisles get created as you need it. Let's just say your humidity levels are going to be different in the outside pallets versus the center, and there'll be a gradient of humidity, right? The more pallets on your side and above and below you producing humidity, right, the more your palate's gonna be humid. Same with light and heat, and so all these things add up, and you can't. There's like a barrier between 10,000 square feet and beyond. Your economies of scale don't outweigh your economies of fail at past 10,000 square feet. If your system is poorly designed at 1,000 square feet, by 20,000, you're destroyed. Let alone 100,000. Forget it. You can't do it. No one's ever done it profitably. And so pallets fix all that. That's the cool part. That's the good news. So we're going to be basically now. Here's the cool thing. The pallets not only allow me to grow salads and mushrooms and fish and blah, 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 blah. They let me do something no one else has done yet, which is grow supplements. Supplement grade plant material. This took me 5 years. 5 years of my life to figure out. I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. 5 years of my life, driving in the middle of the night to my lab, weekends, whatever it took, working full-time job, taking care of 3 kids. And it's so hard. It's so hard. The seed cleaning process is hard. The seed growing process is hard. The plant drying process is hard. I had to invent new freaking processes for everything. It was brutal. It was brutal. I quit many times and came back to it. But the output is a dried, powderized plant material that, it turns out, fixes all the problems in the supplement industry. Supplements, if you don't know, are basically inert. Like, they don't do anything. Because the industry isn't required by law to prove efficacy. That costs a lot of money, typically, in FDA, gold standard trials that drugs have to go through. They just have to prove they're safe, and like not lie about their ingredients, basically. So nobody does efficacy studies on supplements because nobody wants to know their supplement sucks. They just need to prove it's safe. And this is why no matter how many supplements people take, as a population, we're not getting any healthier. Certain people can find the certain brands and the certain supplements that work, but the entire industry is limited by the manufacturing process that the supplements in mass go through, which is just basically synthetic chemical engineering. Hey, we need this molecule made in mass. Okay, let's make a ton of it. Nothing else we introduce. We can validate it so it's clean. Great. But it turns out 1,000 milligrams providing you 1,000% of your vitamin C needs for a day, is a trick they use to ensure that the small percentage of that vitamin C that absorbs into your cells is call it a usable dose, right? Like the body is like a beneficial amount. That's why these percentages are so high, because when you isolate and concentrate a molecule, a bioavailable molecule, doesn't increase its absorbency. It usually decreases it. Concentrating molecules decreases absorbency. It's just the way nature works. It's kind of crazy. And on the flip side, supplements derived from whole plant sources, so like the whole kelp ground into, that manganese absorbs into animal femurs at a much higher rate, even though the concentration was much lower. And so I found that our supplement, our first supplement, had the same weight loss effect at a much lower dosage of the active ingredient than as much as a injection of pure molecule mixture, 99% concentrate, into intravenously into rats. And you can't do that to humans. It hurts, and it doesn't help. Like, that's what you have to do to get enough of the, in our case, sulforaphane into the body. And we found that there's an enzyme that, so basically our first supplement is called sulforaphane. Okay, it's a sulforaphane precursor mix. You can go buy it at pointbotanicals.com. It will block the chemicals that force weight gain. It'll rebalance your gut biome. It's okay, really important. It's the next Ozempic molecule. It increases GLP-1 levels. Da 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 da. Huge benefits to society. Huge. It's unstable at room temperatures. It breaks down really quickly. It needs to be hydrolyzed in cold, liquid, aqueous, water-based acidic solution, which means its precursors, glucoraphanate and myrosinase, need to mix in something like fruit juice, and then it can be taken. That's why there's a company that keeps copying me called Brock Shot. Kind of sounds like backshot. I don't know. I'm just a dad of 3. What do I know? But, ugh. I don't want a Brock Shot on my back. They sell this powder you mix into a cup and then you shoot it down because their powder has citric acid in it, basically. And so when you mix it with water, boom, it activates and you can drink it. Stabilized versions of the pure isolate sulforaphane don't work that well. Synthesized versions don't work that well. You need a complex of molecules to get the target molecule where it needs to go. And this is because the human body is unreasonably complex. It's like that scene where Luke Skywalker's trying to bomb the starship or whatever, the Death Star, and there's just like, it's just like warfare, or the scene at not Men in Black, Independence Day, where they're trying to destroy the mothership. You're trying to get through a city, a galaxy. You have 150 million times more cells in your dumb body, my dumb body that I don't know how to run, than there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Think about that. We are 150 million times more complex than the Milky Way galaxy. That's insane. So when a molecule enters through your mouth hole, it needs to survive your saliva, your stomach acid, it needs to get absorbed, it needs to survive your immune system, it needs to survive the destination, the body temperature, to get to the site it gets absorbed by, and then it needs to get into the organ, and then get into the cell inside the organ, and then the cell is another frigging metropolitan city that it needs to, like, hey, do you know where the, it's like my parents come in here from Iran, they're like, oh, that is the train station, you're just like holding up a thing, hoping somebody helps you, and it's like, 1,000 to 1,000,000 repairs being a day of DNA winding, unwinding. I mean, it's like, and then it goes and it does the thing where it needs to go. That's impossible. And so the current supplement paradigm is about mass. It's a carpet bombing. We're just gonna drop leaflets across this entire city and hope that one of them gets to the person we're trying to contact. Versus a social media ad that's perfectly messaged and targets the exact audience and speaks to them directly. Like dropping leaflets from a helicopter or talking to the person that actually cares with the message that actually matters through the channel that actually resonates. This is like the difference. And so whole plant complexes, when you bite an apple, the vitamin C from the skin absorbs at like a huge rate compared to, and vitamin C is one of the ones that absorbs best, but like turmeric, 5% of your turmeric absorbs when you take turmeric tablets. And the quality of the manufacturing process determines the bioavailability of the molecule in question. So in their kill step, where they get whatever, especially if it came from a plant, companies have a hard time cleaning plant material without degrading molecular activity. So when they do that, it denatures every molecule to some percentage or breaks a certain percentage of molecules. But they have to do it to get the other molecules in, aka the RNA inside a virus or whatever's a pathogen, out or dead, so that you can safely take this. And then, but those two things, pathogens and the cells of a pathogen and the cells of a plant, they're very similar in size and shape and tolerances. So it's really hard to. And so we solved that problem by cleaning the seeds like you cannot believe, and then growing them out with by maintaining a clean environment and then drying them while maintaining a clean environment, so that we don't have to introduce a harsh kill step at the end of a dirty process. Basically, we start with dirty ingredients, then get them really clean and keep them clean, and then dry them gently. So this allows, the one enzyme that we measured, which is myrosinase, which is the bottleneck for getting sulforaphane out into the market. Everybody knows sulforaphane. It's 3,000 studies that show sulforaphane is like a miracle molecule. Anything you can imagine, because it activates your genes. The genes then create proteins. The proteins just go do their thing. And 60 of them are cytoprotectives. They clean and repair cells. It's not like the molecule is doing the thing. At any rate, you need the myrosinase to activate the glucoraphanin, and the myrosinase is an enzyme, and it's really hard to get, and it's hard to synthesize that easily. It's hard to grow it from plants, and it's hard to produce it from bacteria. We found a way to grow it from plants, and our myrosinase, you could think of it as scissors, like a hinge, had an activity level that was like 500 units per gram versus from the lab supply store, it's like 120 units per gram. And that's like basically how many actions, I don't know if this is correct. I'm going to go look it up. What does units per gram mean in enzyme kinesthetics? Kinesthesiology? Kinesthetics? I don't know what the word is. Kinetics. Okay, so in enzyme kinetics, units per gram, U divided by G, refers to the activity of an enzyme measured in units of catalytic activity per gram of enzyme. It's a way to express how much substrate an enzyme can convert into product in a given time relative to the amount of enzyme present. So like, how much work can a gram of your enzyme perform? How many times can it cut the thing that it's meant to cut per gram in a given period of time? And so the more active, the less you need. The more active, the more you produce from your substrate. In this case, it's glucoraphanin from brassicas, like broccoli. And so we have this like off the charts activity level. And then they're hermetically sealed in cells, plant cells that are dried. So it's 96% of the water or something, over 95% of the water is removed, right? And that creates this unbelievable shelf life, because in a dissolved solution of enzymes, you need to keep it at refrigerated. You need to not expose it to light, because they're very delicate molecules, and when they're hermetically sealed in a cell, a plant cell, they had like a really long shelf life. Like at 6 months, their activity per gram was the same as the shit you had to buy off the lab supply store at an insane price point. And you could keep it at room temperature because it was sealed. And it produced an incredible effect. So it surprised us all. We started taking it, and everyone started losing weight. And I had separately done an analysis online to say, okay, sulforaphane has these benefits. 3,000 studies. Half of them are around cancer, chemo prevention. It blocks tumors. It shrinks tumors. It prevents tumor stem cells from forming. And it boosts chemotherapy drugs like cisplatin while decreasing the side effects. I'm like, holy shit, that's exciting. How, that's like a big question. It turns out people weren't that excited about the cancer. Unfortunately, I tried to market it as a cancer supplement, and it didn't go anywhere. And then it has neurodegenerative protection and gut biome protection and um, weight loss protection, and but the papers that supported the weight loss were like 150 papers out of 3,000. So it was the smallest kind of cluster of of a use case, if you will, like this least supported by the use case, but it was clear as day. It has like 14 mechanisms of action for weight reduction. Now, here's the thing. I tested all these things, and weight loss was like the number one intent. And so I went down that rabbit hole. That's my day job, is I engineer product market fit and build customer journeys based on like the inputs of the market. So I built this whole brand for the people that were interested in the weight loss benefits of this of the sulforaphane. And um, the it's like one, and it basically increases GLP-1 levels. GLP-1 is an enzyme peptide, is a chemical the body makes that increases satiation, so you feel fuller faster. So people ate less, and in the American diet, the less you eat, the less poisons you're getting. Your inflammation goes down, other issues start resolving, and if weight is reduced, that then creates an issue. And I found that it it kills bad bacteria, increases good bacteria. It increases GLP-1 because it increases the bacteria that produce it naturally. It blocks obesogenic molecules like BPA from inducing weight loss, weight gain. It uh, increases muscle strength, muscle stamina, decreases recovery time. Uh, it's an incredible molecule. It's an incredible molecule. And it's like the first epigenetic supplement. It activates your genome, which create proteins that create the effects. And that's why the effects are so wide and delicate and precise. Now, the thing about the obesogenic piece, when I learned about obesogens, dude, I thought it was fake. I was like, this is, it's part of that like body positivity time where everyone, obese people were being celebrated. And I'm like, what's going on here? This doesn't seem right. And it turns out obesogens are a real thing. They're a real thing, and they're a major driver of our unique brand of obesity in America. And you've seen people here who are just like, you catch yourself staring because you're like, how is that muscle group carrying so much fat? It like doesn't make sense. And as well as I think many dumb, ignorant people were like, this person is weak, undisciplined, selfish, blah blah blah, slovenly, blah, 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 blah. I was like, no, dude, they're poisoned. They're poisoned with obesogens. And I went down this rabbit hole. It changed my worldview forever. When a scientist wants to study something like Ozempic, they will need to get obese mice. Well, obese mice aren't born. You have to create them. So they'll find mice with a known genetic trait that's activated that encourages obesity. Right? They're genetically predisposed to obesity. It's like a type of mice you can buy. Then they will feed them a high-fat diet that's 60% fat, and it's just like corn oil, basically. They feed them corn oil, 60% fat. So now they have a high-calorie diet. Then, that's not enough to speed things up. That's not fast enough. Predisposition to obesity plus a high-fat diet does not get the mice fat enough, fast enough. They dose them with BPA, bisphenol A, the chemical in every cheap piece of plastic. This causes the obesity to skyrocket, the weight gain to skyrocket. And what it does in the body, BPA specifically, it short circuits the body, the brain's, the part of the brain that manages fat. And it does three things that are horrific. It it forces the overproduction of fat cells. So you got all these stem cells, and they got to go be this type and that type and that type. It overproduces the fat cell production. Then it over engorges those cells, shoves them full of lipids and cholesterol and stuff. Now you have a bunch of fat cells on your body. Now, fat is just energy to the body. It's batteries. It's actually ideal energy, right? It's like perfect energy. You're burning a lamp. You want fat, what do they use? You use whale fat, right? Then it does something horrific. It blocks, I think it does, yeah. It blocks or reduces the brain's sensitivity to a hormone called leptin. Leptin is produced by fat cells. White adipose tissue produces leptin, this hormone. It flows through the blood. The brain can then check based on the concentration of leptin. It knows a snapshot of how much fat is on the body. And then it decides how much you need to eat that day. No fat in the body, you're going to need to eat more. Tons of fat in the body that we can then burn easily, you don't need to eat as much. The body, under BPA poisoning, overproduces fat cells and blocks the brain from seeing them. So the brain thinks you're starving, and it tells you to go eat more calories. Too many of those calories get put into fat cell production that the brain can't see, so your brain then thinks it's still starving, and that's why really obese people, they break down at the end of the day after starving all day. Their brain is literally yelling at them, eat, you fool, eat, you're gonna die, eat everything you can, you're on the edge of starvation. Whatever is the highest calorie diet, eat it. We need more fat desperately. We don't have any fat. We can't see I can't see any leptin in your bloodstream. And then the BPA short circuits those calories and over indexes for fat cell production that are engorged and then can't be seen by the brain. So it's this horrible cycle. And that's why so much fat can be put on a person. Because think about it. I didn't realize this. I was so ignorant. Until you take sulforaphane and your appetite goes down and your metabolism goes up like very gently over the course of weeks. You can lose about a pound. Everyone lost about a pound a week on average, 0.93 a week. And like, why would the brain not use the fat that's there? Your brain runs off of, batteries. It's got a warehouse full of the AA batteries, the exact fresh, ready to go, pop them in, take the old ones out. Why would the brain tell you, no, I need you to think about food, I need you to think about I need you to spend your precious prefrontal cortex planning on how to get food. And then I need you to digest that food. And then I need you to form the energy molecules that then I can use. As opposed to just going on the shelf and putting those energy. It would never do that if it knew how to access the fat at its stores. And so when you take sulforaphane, it, as one of our advisors' paper shows, increases leptin sensitivity. It's like a big deal. And then you just burn the fat you have. There's no reason you shouldn't be burning the fat you have, and if it's in excess, unless there's this obesogenic thing. And then you start thinking, okay, it's one thing to get injected with BPA in a lab study. What about our exposure as humans in a modern industrialized nation like America? Is this really the driver? Is BPA the driver? Is there another chemical? Is there another issue? And then when you start diving in, you double, triple click here. Dude, these chemicals are so prevalent and so under-regulated in America, and let's just focus on America for a second, that in 2 days, the average American is exposed to enough BPA. Enough BPA gets in your bloodstream in 2 days to induce obesity. The only question is, how fast can your liver detox the BPA? Because at a certain point, it loses the game. You get, by year 10, by year 30, it's having a hard time keeping up. Now, if you're predisposed, if you're overexposed, you're undernourished, let's say, your body isn't as healthy, it can't detox these things, like you're in a downward spiral. So where's BPA? Oh my God, it's in everything. Everything, any plastic water bottle, ditch it. You're chugging like disposable water bottles, leaching BPA into the water due to a long shelf life and temperature non-refrigerated trucking. So they're moving through hot storage, trucks in the back of a truck going down the Tennessee highway for 10 hours, baking in the sun. All that BPA leaching into the water. Another mega vector. This is so depressing. Spandex, shapewear, synthetic plastic cloths, stretchy cloth, has BPA in it. It's when it's touching sweaty skin, the sweat acts as a conduit for the BPA molecules to go directly through the pores into the bloodstream. So literally, working out in shapewear is forcing you to gain weight. You cannot will yourself. It's like trying to not be poisoned by fentanyl. You don't have a say. Your body is out of the loop. It's happening at a deeper level. These molecules are wreaking havoc. Now, BPA is just one obesogen, which is just one set of hormone disruptors, which is just one of 5.6 trillion pounds of chemicals we manufacture every year in the world. And next year, it'll be more. And next decade, it'll be more. Because economic growth, because we need cheap plastic materials. Every piece of food has to be wrapped in plastic because our economy is built off of cheap chemicals. And in the industrialized nations, these cheap chemicals are part of the fabric of our daily lives. Our car interiors, our printers, our electronics, our food system, on and on, our clothing, textiles, like everything that we associate with materialism is made of cheap chemicals. A tiny bit is getting into your blood every day. And over the course of your lifetime, it's killing you. It's the reason 70% of us in America have a chronic disease. It's a chronic disease caused by chronic exposure. Chronic disease is caused by chronic exposure. On top of that, it gets worse. Oh, don't worry. It gets worse. I'll tell you about the solution in 1 second. Our food is less nutritious every decade. Less vitamins and less minerals. So we don't have the building blocks to repair the damage. We're getting poisoned from 50,000 different vectors with toxins. And then our supplements are inert because of the manufacturing process. So we're fucked. We're completely fucked. This is why birth rates are plummeting, I believe. These hormone disruptors. People used to have kids and then move to cheaper places to raise their kids in public schools. Now, they just don't want kids. Why do they not want kids? Their libido is destroyed. Testosterone, sperm count, female infertility, all dropping. I guarantee you hormone disruptors are the driving force behind that. When you look at a chart of GDP to it's GDP to birth rate. The poorer the country, the lower GDP per capita per person, the higher the birth rate. The more rich the average person, the lower the birth rate. It's not a cost issue. Kids aren't that expensive. If you make an average living in any country, you can afford multiple kids. They don't have to go to college. They can get scholarships. They can get loans. They can go. It's not a financial issue. I know people are worried about that, but when we were horny as a civilization, We didn't have time to think about that. We just had kids, and then we dealt with it. So what's the solution? How are we going to fix all this in fast enough before the birth rate goes to 0, cancer rate goes to 100%? How are we going to solve this? We have to build, and I am doing this, a vertically integrated, decentralized, clean agricultural supply chain. Vertical farms, it turns out, solves all these problems. Every vertical farm will produce the supplements needed to remove and repair the body, treating, or not treating, but preventing or ameliorating the effects of chronic diseases. Will produce the protein and vegetables and food to feed our bodies clean food, not exposed to the environment, which is now a toxic cesspool where it's needed most, and will create the industrial agricultural outputs to configure, to repair, let's just say, the surrounding soil and farms. So with one vertical farm, we can grow supplements, including sulforaphane, which can only be grown indoors in a vertical hydroponic setting. Go figure. Like, for reasons that I will leave to another episode. That alone is like gonna stop the bleeding while we figure out what to do. Then the food output is going to feed a whole city by licensing out the technology so that companies can produce, more of these products themselves. We don't want to be mass producing everything. We want to be the technology layer behind this. And then the licensing will include like pharmaceuticals, livestock feed, baby formula or puree, infant puree, I should say, and organic fertilizer and worms. Red worms will actually be, I believe, and bacteria, mushrooms as well, to ameliorate not ameliorate, what's the term? When you repair dirty soil. Rejuvenate, there's a phrase, I can't remember, and these farms will be fully funded by the supplements. That's the crazy thing. I can go in right now into any office building, take it over, start farming supplements on one level, and pay for the entire renovation of the rest of the building. And then the building will have a different level for fish, and then a different level, shrimp, I should say seafood, shrimp, and fish, and maybe clams or mussels. And then another level for greens, packaged salads, teas, herbs, that kind of stuff. And then another level for mushrooms, and then another level for baby food, another level for livestock feed, et cetera, et cetera. And what we're going to create is a vertical farming district. Give us your old, shitty office building in a dead part of town. We will renovate it, and then it will produce a plethora of economic activity, jobs in the building. Output will go down to the first floor and be sold direct to consumer. Certain crops will be sold to wholesalers, not wholesalers, but restaurants and grocery stores, to the community, food kitchens and so on, soup kitchens and so on. And then there will be businesses created on the backs of these ingredients. Dude, if I have to go spend $100 to get 5 things at Trader Joe's, I might as well go spend the same amount of money and get real nutritious food, not some seafood that is grown in an offshore ocean farm that's still exposed to the mercury in our oceans. And now microplastics. Oh yeah, guess what? We all have like microplastics in every organ of our body. Guess what they're melting into? Microplastics are made of BPA. So we're baselining BPA right into our in a slow time release capsule, right into our veins. What are we going to do about that? You can't change the global supply chain fast enough so that we finally are not exposed to these chemicals before the collapse of civilization. I mean, like, this is a global problem. To give us enough time to fix that giant global issue, We all need to be on sulforaphane, and we all need to have vertical farming districts in all of our cities. Period. End of story. There's no other way to create a parallel agricultural supply chain that's not exposed to the air, water, and uh, you know, global uncertainty other than indoor farming. And the reason indoor farming is the solution to our global chemical catastrophe is because the one chemical that removes and blocks these things can only be produced in a vertical farm. It's insane. Sulforaphane. It's insane. So, please go to pointbotanicals.com, subscribe to the sulforaphane product. I have a pro and a regular. Pro is for like a year if you want to lose all the weight you want. It's stronger. And then the regular is for maintenance, keeping the weight off. Because, dude, as soon as you introduce the obesogens back into your life, you're going to gain the weight. This is the reason no one in America can lose weight. You can only keep your weight flat or gain weight. It's a one-way ratchet in America because we are literally in 2 days' time get enough BPA to induce obesity, which is this molecular overproduction of fat cells and the blocking of leptin. I define that as obesity. When your body's doing that, good luck. You can only starve it. I mean, and you know the problems with these other GLP-1s. They need the calories. They're going to take it from elsewhere in the body, and that's why people get this, sunken face. It's not good. It's a desperate situation, which calls for desperate measures, and I would never take it off the market, and I wish it was cheaper. But we need a natural solution. There's an alternative. We literally make the world's best sulforaphane precursors. You can't outcompete us in terms of quality of the supplement without inventing the vertical farming platform needed to produce the one way to make these things. So it's like there's just no better. This is it, okay? Raw, organic, completely natural, 100% plant material, 2 plants combined, perfectly grown, perfectly preserved, and to produce enough sulforaphane to get this type of effort. You can also give it to your pets. You can also give it to your kids. Dose it down, obviously. And you have to mix it in cold fruit juice, basically. You can use seltzer water if you want, but the best route is cold grapefruit juice. The tang completely covers this, because you're making sulfur. If you pour it in and mix it, you leave the room and come back in 5 minutes, it'll smell like broccoli. It'll smell like sulfur. And so you just want to let it sit for a minute, down it. And that's when you get the most and active sulforaphane possible. So go to pointbotanicals.com, go to skyrisefarms.com, send us an email, book a call, learn more, see how we can get a Skyrise farm in your city. If you want your city to have its own vertical farming district, which every city on earth deserves, in which we're going as fast as possible to create across America, reach out. We can work together. We can identify buildings, partners, capital. We could put the deal together, and your town can have its own local, decentralized, and clean agricultural supply chain for critical ingredients that our babies and cities and cells need to survive. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a great day. See you next week.